Hello, my dear students. Now we start considering new chapter, the biggest chapter of general hygiene. It's about nutritional hygiene. Today we need to consider correlation between nutrition and health. We discuss and consider food as an environmental factor. We will consider criteria for physiological requirements in energy and nutrients. We will consider the main principles of balanced nutrition and organization of nutrition in case of coronavirus infection will be considered too. Let's start the lecture. What is nutrition hygiene? In general, what is the main problems of nutritional hygiene? Nutritional hygiene is a branch of preventive medicine. It focused on the problems of balanced clinical and preventive nutrition. As well, at the same time, it developing the measures providing food safety, raw food, food products, processed food safety, and practically, nutrition hygiene consists of two main parts. Hygienic problems of nutrition of different group of population from the one side, and from the other side is the hygienic of food safety, its protection against xenobiotics. Unfortunately, nowadays, a huge epidemiology of obesity recognized in the world, especially in developed countries. Millions and millions of people in the world are obese actually, especially in the United States, in Europe, in China. It's one of the actual problems. What is the main reasons of nutrition problems? What's the main problems in nutrition nowadays? The biggest problem, and we focused on the huge discrepancy between food intake and physiological requirements of human body. Why it's happened? The first point is imbalanced nutrition. Because of our lifestyle, usually a modern person haven't enough time to focus, to check, to monitor, to observe their nutrition in proper way. And the second one, modern foods unfortunately are poor with essential nutrients, and it can lead to lack of essential nutrients in the diet. Before we considering balanced nutrition, I should emphasize you must know there are four types of nutrition according to its biological effect on the human organism. First of all, during actual semester, we focused on balanced nutrition for healthy persons to prevent alimentary disease because of specific effect of food. Also, general medicine doctors focused also on hospital for nutrition of sick patients to provide rehabilitation, to provide restoration on homeostasis deviation. In occupational medicine, as you know, we need to maintain homeostasis to avoid allergy, occupational allergy, and to decrease the risk of harmful effects of occupational factors. Using protective effect of food and preventive nutrition should be used in the border between health and pathology among risk group of population to prevent and to decrease the risk of onset of nutritionally related diseases. Now let's consider what is the definition of balanced nutrition. Balanced nutrition is a physiologically balanced diet for healthy persons. I should emphasize keeping your attention. Balanced nutrition for healthy persons. And there are some synonyms, the word of balanced or adequate or reasonable or sensible or rational or adequate nutrition. The word rationalis came from Latin and means scientifically based, reasonable, and sensible. And we need balanced nutrition to maintain homeostasis, to maintain our requirements in energy, in building materials, to cover our biochemical needs, to maintain physiological basics of health, to maintain homeostasis, to maintain our functional activity of all organs and systems, to support its resistance against adverse environmental factors in various conditions of our ordinary life. What are the main functions of food? First of all, energy. We need energy and nutrients to maintain our life, because human body is open system and we need energy and nutrients outside. The main source of energy is carbohydrates and lipids. In case of lack of energy, our human body uses their own proteins. And what is the main source of food energy is bread, cereals, pasta, some vegetables like potatoes, some fats and sugar. The next function of food is the source of building like anabolic materials to provide anabolism. We need essential amino acids, some minerals, some polyunsaturated fatty acids, and some food fibers from meat, fish, milk, eggs, or legumes to build our body, cells, and tissues and organs to maintain physical growth and development. Third function is metabolism regulation, provided with some enzymes, with vitamins and minerals and polyunsaturated fatty acids. So a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables and berries, liver, eggs, and fish rich with mentioned regulative nutrients. To maintain function and adaptation of gastrointestinal tract, we need enough amount of food fibers and fresh, clean water. We can intake enough amount of fibers if we eat whole grain bread and bran and cereals and fresh vegetables and fruits and natural drinks. To pretend to maintain protection and rehabilitation, we need to intake enough amount of essential amino acids for proteins and enzymes, some fat and water-soluble vitamins and minerals, and polyunsaturated fatty acids, especially to maintain our immune response against viral and bacterial infections. So also fresh fruits, vegetables, berries, liver and egg and fish, again rich with mentioned nutrients. We need to take diverse food every day to be supplied with all necessary nutrients. And don't forget about one more function of food. Food, not just the main source of food and energy and nutrients, but also tasty, good-looking food with good size and view and smell. It's a part of human life. We need to eat good food to maintain, to improve our mood and psychological status. And like food maybe the way of communications even between relatives in the family, and to cook good food, to provide that main taste and smell. You usually add some seasoning, spices, vegetables, because to improve its gust and extractive features. The next chapter about main principles of balanced nutrition. We called it law of balanced nutrition. You must know that there are 5 principles of balanced nutrition for healthy persons. First of all, energy adequacy of nutrition. The second one, plastic or anabolic or nutrient adequacy. Third point is enzymatic adequacy of nutrition. Fourth principle, biotic adequacy of nutrition. And the last point is biorhythmological adequacy of nutrition. Let's consider them one by one. The first point is energy. Energy expenditure in human body should be covered with food energy. But according to the World Health Organization experts, long-term or short-term and severe violation leads to energy imbalance. Usually in case of long-term violation, it's about 10%. What is the main reasons of energy imbalance? Most common is the external, exogenous, inadequate or imbalance nutrition if we intake too much food. And sometimes in case of some diseases, endogenous or internal pathological condition leads to food digestion, absorption, and assimilation of nutrients. What to do to estimate energy balance, energy expenditures? First step is to check our energy, how much energy we spend per day, and it's part of physiology too, and we can estimate our energy expenditure with direct respiratory, alimentary, timetable calculation, and World Health Organization methods with physical activity level methods. 5 points are used. It will be considered during the next lecture in details. It will be explained. And as for second point of balanced nutrition is nutrient or anabolic or plastic adequacy of nutrition. Quantity, quality, chemical composition of food must provide all required plastic, biochemical, and other processes occurring in the human organism. And the ratio between main nutrients should be optimal and balanced to maintain optimal level of activity of human body. And according main function of nutrients, they can be subdivided into energy, plastic, and catalytic functions. It's considered for main source of energy for human bodies, lipids and carbohydrates. Main building materials is amino acids, minerals, water, and vitamins, and some minerals are catalytic coenzymes function. According nutrients substitutability, it's subdivided into non-essential and essential. We can live without some simple sugars, saturated fats, and some fibers, but our body cannot live without essential amino acids. 8 for adults, 10 for children, 16 vitamins, especially water-soluble vitamins. First of all, some minerals and trace elements, polyunsaturated fatty acids are essential. Water, some complexes, phospholipids, lipoproteins, glycoproteins, phosphoproteins, total number more than 50 different nutrients are essential for human body. Formula, so-called formula or balance ratio for healthy adults is created by famous Russian physiologist Pokrovsky, Professor Pokrovsky. He has been created his ratio in the middle of previous century, and optimal and physiologically based healthy ratio of protein, fats, and energy is 1 to 1.2 or 1 to 4.6. And in practice, when calculate our physiological requirements in nutrient and energy based on balanced megacalorie to provide it, our body with 1000 kilocalories of energy, we need to intake 30 grams of protein, 33 grams of lipids, and 145 grams of carbohydrates, respectively. It gives us 12, 30, and 58% of energy intake. As for vitamins, there are two different ways how to define our physiological requirements in vitamins. For example, we can use megacalorie and calculate personal physiological requirements in vitamins using the mentioned proportions, different requirements, different vitamins C and B group mentioned per 1000 of kilocalories, or we can use absolute numbers for the whole population. Two of these methods can be used in practice. What about protein? We consider that 12% of total energy intake should be provided with proteins, and about 55 or 60% of the total protein must be animal origin to maintain depot of amino acids. As for fats and lipids, 30% of total energy should be provided with lipids, and 1/4 or 1/3 of lipids should be plant origin. And total 4 or 6% of total energy should be provided with polyunsaturated fatty acids. As I told, as for minerals, same like for vitamins, we have a daily recommended daily intake level. And also we use one more term, tolerable upper intake level. What does it mean? Let me show the definition. So we use two levels. RDI, recommended daily intake of vitamins or minerals. It's a physiological requirements, but in case some deficiency, in case of treatment, if we prescribe therapeutic for example, vitamin for therapy, something, we mustn't exceed tolerable upper intake level. It's the highest level of daily intake of food or biologically active substances, which doesn't present any danger, any risk of negative effects on health status or adults in general population. We shouldn't exceed this level. Third point, third principle of balanced nutrition is about enzymatic adequacy of nutrition. According to this principle, food chemical composition should correspond then to the chemical composition of food enzymes. And in case of enzymatic principle violation, it leads to enzymopathia. If we have lack of enzymes in gastrointestinal tract, it leads to violation of its digestion and of food absorption. Why enzymopathia happens? Because of hereditary disorders, some genetic pathology, and there is for example, enzyme synthesis because of gene disorders, alimentary reasons, lack of vitamin B1, B12, or proteins, or iron, copper, manganese, or chromium, toxic reasons in case of occupational intoxication, some xenobiotic affect enzymes and enzyme system, and neuroendocrine regulation also leads to enzymopathia in case of stress, for example. As for biotic adequacy of nutrition, point number 4 is about food safety. One of the main task and goal of nutrition hygiene focused on food safety, and according to this principle, food we eat must be biotic. So it must be absolutely harmless. Don't contribute to human environment any xenobiotic, any harmful substances, any pesticides, no heavy metals, no nitrates, nitrates, or nitrosamines, toxins, radioactive substances, and non-bacterial mustn't be in level. It mustn't exceed permitted limits. And violation of biotic principle of food nutrition leads to food poisoning. It will be considered in the last lecture. And when create our diet every day, we need to consider biorhythmological adequacy of nutrition. Its principle, it's a proper distribution of food intake between different meals, in different breaks, proper time between meal intake, proper distribution of energy between different breaks. For example, we need to intake food 3 or 4 times per day. It promotes the best absorption of food, and maximal term between meals shouldn't be more than 5 hours. And before going to bed, before sleeping, we have a break between last food intake and sleeping, about 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours for best food absorption and relaxation during night sleep. And optimal proportions between nutrients should be provided at each meal. But it's difficult to organize. But first of all, we need to focus on proper energy distribution and separate meals. Or breakfast, lunch, dinner, some snacks between them. And our food meal regimen depends on our physiological status, our health, sick or health, age, infant or children, adult, elderly, case of pregnancy and lactation, and about occupational activity, labor, working, for example, at night shift. And when organize our nutrition to make it balanced, we need to follow nutritional requirements, nutritional regulations. The standards, average standard values, it reflects our needs, different population group needs in main nutrients and energy. And the main criteria to estimate is energy expenditure because of work, severity of work. And according to severity of work, there are 4 population groups for male, for female, and 5 for male. And according to the age, all adults divided into 3 subgroups: 18-29, 30-39, and 40-59 years of age. The first group of work intensity, severity of work, it's mental worker. For example, students belong to mental worker, PC programmers, teacher and scientists. And level of physical activity. What is it? Level of physical activity is ratio between total energy expenditure per day divided by basal metabolic rate. Physical activity level is 1.4. Daily energy expenditure is mentioned on the bottom of the slide for male and for female. Second group, physical activity coefficient is a bit higher, 1.6. It's a light physical activity work. For example, nurse, or veterinarians or sales on manufactured goods. Energy expenditure also was mentioned. Third groups is the employee with a moderate level of physical activity. For example, surgeons or bus driver or food workers. Physical activity coefficient is 1.9. Group number 4, it's employee with hard physical activities, building constructors worker, agriculture worker, metallurgist, professional athletes, and physical activity coefficient is 2.2. And group number 5 is a maximal group, the highest energy expenditure, particularly heavy physical labor for male only, for example, non-mechanized work activity in steel industry, import for dockers, for miners, for loggers. The maximal level of physical activity coefficient is 2.5. And in this case, daily physiological energy requirements may exceed 4,000 kilocalories of energy per day. So that's why it's a dilemma. Its answer is evident, but our lifestyle promote and to maintain our life and health. What to do, how to organize, for example, children nutrition and according nutritional standards. Children's nutrition divided into several groups according its age, first of all. Infants. Early infants are subdivided into 3 groups, 1 to 3 months, 4 to 6 months, 7 to 12 months. Preschool and school children subdivided into 6 subgroups, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 10 years of age without subdivision according to gender, and boys and girls separated since 11 till 13, and the adolescents are divided into 14 and 17 years of age. What's the main features? First of all, what is the value of energy expenditure of children? It's about 1 or 2 or 3,000 kilocalories, depends on age. But we need to maintain the physiological ratio of proteins and fats and carbohydrates. 12 till 15% of total energy should be provided with proteins, 30% with fats, and about 55–58% with carbohydrates. What is the key point of children's nutrition? We need to include the source of protein in early infants, in younger children. For example, milk and dairy products, low-fat meat and fish, the best source of protein for them. Animal proteins should provide it about 70% of total proteins for early infants, and step by step this number decreases to 60% of total proteins for 7 years of age. In preschool and school children, we need to include enough amount of meat and fish dishes, main source of proteins. But if we include enough amount of milk and dairy products and fish also, it provided about 60 or 80% of physiological requirements in calcium. You know, calcium is essential for growing children. Don't forget to include in the diet enough amount of fresh fruits and vegetables. First of all, it should be raw, unprocessed, to preserve all essential vitamins. As for frequency, of meal. In younger age group, it should be at least 5 times per day. In elder children, about 4 times per day. What about mental work, employee, and for students, for example, for you? Main feature, you have low level of energy expenditure, low level of lifestyle, of physical activity, and you have severe psycho-emotional stress. Your usual level of energy expenditure is about 2000 kilocalories of energy, whereas and you need to intake enough amount of animal origin proteins. You must have physiological requirements of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. But to decrease the level of stress and to avoid atherosclerosis, you need to intake some nutrients which help you to avoid atherosclerosis. For example, vitamin B group and vitamin C. And you should intake food 4 times per day. 25% of energy should be taken for breakfast, about 20% for lunch, dinner, or maybe 35% for lunch, maybe 20% for snack. But any case, pay your attention. Most of energy should be taken in the first half of the day till 4 o'clock. And if you include whole grain bread, cereals, vegetables, fruits, and berries, unprocessed, you will supply your body with necessary antioxidant vitamins. It's strictly advised. What's about elderly nutrition? Elderly characterized with decreased level of metabolism, low physical activity, some disorders, endocrine disorder, neuroendocrine regulation disorder. You need to maintain energy balance for them between low energy expenditure and energy value of food should match their energy expenditure. But at the same time, we need to maintain enough amount of protein to avoid marasm, for example. And we need to supply their body with 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. For example, with dairy, sour dairy food, with low-fat meat and fish. And also they must have physiological ratio of nutrients. Also, they need anti-atherosclerotic nutritional factor like mental work, employee, for example, lecithin, and other phosphatids, polyunsaturated fatty acids is essential, tocopherol, vitamin E, choline, inosine, cyanocobalamin, folic acid to stimulate the nervous system and enzymes. And in any case, pay your attention. Food ration for elderly should be diverse because sometimes they have mental problems. We need to check if they food diet diverse, and we need to limit intake of sugar, pastry, animal fat, and simple sugars, and instead them should be provided with fresh fruits, vegetables. And as for meal regimen, also should be provided with 4 times per day at least. And don't forget to include enough amount of food fibers to help to maintain sufficient activity of gastrointestinal tract to avoid constipation, for example. Athletes lifestyle is characterized with a very high level of energy expenditures. During competition and intensive physical training, their physical activity is very high, 2 or 3 physical training per day, and energy expenditure may exceed 4 or even 5,000 kilocalories of energy. They need a high level of proteins. Consider it as controversial, but minimal physiological requirements in proteins for athletes should be 2, sometimes 2.5 in case of physical training aimed for gain muscles. And one sort of daily food ration should be consist of easy digested carbohydrates to maintain sufficient amount of carbohydrates. It's the main source of energy for them. It is a source of fast energy. But at the same time, we need to consumption of lipids to prevent fatty liver. But also lipids are necessary. For athletes nutrition, we shouldn't avoid them because it's provided energy density of food daily ration, because it's very difficult to intake enough amount of energy. For example, 5,000 kilocalories using just carbohydrates. It's impossible to eat so much food if we remove lipids from the ration. Also, because of high level of muscle activity, they have some homeostasis deviations in human body. A lot of acidosis happens, and to maintain acid-base balance, they need to intake enough alkaline food like milk, fruits, and vegetables containing enough amount of magnesium, calcium. And as for food regimen, it's very difficult question really for athletes, because if they have 2 or 3 physical training per day, when it was, for example, a couple of hours each, and if we consider we need to eat 1 hour before physical training at about 40 minutes after at least. So in any case, finally, you can see it's too difficult to organize a working day schedule to coordinate all these requirements. And athletes should be supplied with all necessary essential vitamins and minerals and physiologically recommended daily intake values. How to describe different food products? It can be done with some characteristics of food. The first of them is nutritional value. Nutritional value is a complex of properties of food that provides human physiological requirements, for example, in energy or in essential nutrients and proteins, or essential fats or carbohydrates and food fibers, for example, minerals or vitamins. And a food product is a source of essential nutrients. It's considered like high nutritional value of food. And the second parameter is biological value of food. Its indicator reflects the quality of food product protein. It reflects the degree its conformity of amino acid composition to human organism requirements in essential amino acids to synthesize our body protein. Let's consider some main food products, for example, milk and dairy products. It's the first source of essential amino acids for human, including sulfur-containing methionine, which is a good lipotropic factor preventing fatty liver. It's essential, for example, for athletes to prevent fatty liver. Is the best source of calcium and phosphorus and source of vitamin A, B1, B2, C, vitamin D, and dairy products is a source of useful and healthy lactic acid bacteria and bifidobacteria, which help us to synthesize some vitamins in gastrointestinal tract, help us to fight against infection, and regulate gastrointestinal tract activity. For example, cheese is the richest with calcium and phosphorus. And it should be prescribed, for example, for patients in fractured bones. And for easiest digestion of calcium, it's better to cook grated cheese than sliced one. And nowadays, food industry fortificate dairy products with some vitamins and probiotics. And when buy milk in supermarket, you should prefer pasteurized milk instead sterilized milk, because of better bioavailability. As for meat is the main source of protein. Especially you should choose chicken and turkey meat. And World Health Organization experts advise to limit intake of red meat about 1 time per week even. And chicken and turkey contain easy digestible proteins. It contains low amount of lipids and connective tissue. And you should avoid eating of ducks and geese because it's too fat meat. Liver, for example, and other awful products rich with minerals, with iron, with vitamin A, B2, B12, PP, choline, but consider liver is rich with cholesterol, and it should be limited in case of atherosclerosis, for example, and in case of gout, because it rich with purines. And when cook meat in hospital, for example, for patient, we should prefer to cook boiled or baked meat instead fried or smoked one. Fish is one of the best source of easy broken protein. It's digested quicker than beef protein, for example. It doesn't contain connective tissue. It rich with omega-3 essential polyunsaturated fatty acids with vitamin D, vitamin A, B, with phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, iodine, especially it's essential. For Belarus, it's a common problem, iodine. Fish is rich with methionine. It improves lipid absorption and assimilation and help us to fight against fatty liver. And when choose fish, it's advised to prefer marine fish and sea fish. If there is no allergy, for example, for scomber or tuna, and because it's a source of iodine, iodine is absolutely necessary to maintain mental development and thyroid gland. But patients should avoid salted, pickled, marinated, dried, or canned fish in the diet because it's rich with uric acid. Salts rich with sodium. It can facilitate joint disease. It can promote the risk of hypertension. World Health Organization advises strictly to include nuts and seeds in our food diet. Walnut, peanut, almonds, sunflower seeds, because it's source of vegetable oil, source of lecithin. It has lipotropic, choleretic, antitoxic properties. It helps us to fight against atherosclerosis. maintain homeostasis and nervous system activity. And you should prefer unrefined vegetable oil, fresh made, or maybe made from linen seeds, from sesame, or another sunflower oil, for example, not only olive oil, but it should be stored in proper condition at cool temperature. And when fried, it is advised to add some piece of fresh carrots to avoid appearance of free radicals and to improve absorption of beta-carotene and vitamin A. And if you see some flakes, some turbidity and sedimentation at the bottom of the bottle with oil, don't worry, it's just useful and healthy phosphatids, not because of bad quality of oil. Bread is one of the main source of carbohydrate energy. It's rich with some amino acids, and especially with food fibers. If we consider whole grain bread, a lot of trace elements can be found, like manganese, zinc, copper. And you should prefer whole grain bread, but avoid eating a lot of rye bread in young children. It should be limited because of phytic acids contained in bread react in intestine with calcium, and it leads to appearance of inabsorbable calcium complex and decrease absorption of calcium. It's a risk of rickets for children. And nowadays, food industry enrich and fortificate bread with vitamins, with food fibers, with whole grains, for example, with flakes, with seeds, with dried fruits. And as bread, also you should include enough amount of cereals to your everyday food rations to supply your body with vitamin B group, with food fibers, with complex carbohydrates, for example, buckwheat, oats, barley. Rice, when choose rice, you should prefer special type of rice, not polished rice, because when processed rice, they remove useful outside part of rice and remove vitamin B group. And for example, what's about vegetables, fruits, and juice? It contains a lot of pectin, water-soluble vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin B, beta-carotene, organic acid, potassium, manganese. But you should avoid processed juice rich with sugar, with simple sugars, because it's high risk of obesity. You should use and prefer fresh made juice. And dietitian advise to eat enough amount of fruits and vegetables grown in your climate zone, because your enzymes are adapted to them. And if you include in your daily ration all tricolored fruits and vegetables, green, yellow, and red color fruit and vegetables, you have supplied your body with all necessary vitamins. And dietitians call this rule, this advice, like red traffic light rule: red, yellow, and green colored fruits and vegetables, and should be fresh, unprocessed. What specific regulations and advice should be provided in case of coronavirus infection? It was summarized that human body needs a high biological value of proteins, omega-3 acids, vitamin A, vitamin C, dietary fibers, selenium, copper to maintain anti-inflammatory effects. Omega-3 lipids from poor lipids have essential anti-thrombotic effect. Vitamin A, C, and D also help to protect our body against respiratory infections. Vitamin E, iron, zinc also improve our immune response. And also vitamin C and A and E, together with omega-3 fatty acids, present antioxidant effect in complex. And in case of any respiratory disease, in case of coronavirus infection, carbohydrates with higher glycemic index should be avoided because it contributes to inflammation process. And all this information mentioned in the picture as for anti-inflammatory effects provided with proteins, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin A, C, food fibers, selenium, and copper. Poor lipids provided anti-thrombotic effect, vitamin E, iron, zinc, increase our immune response, antioxidant effect provided with vitamin A, C, E, and omega-3, and respiratory infection. To fight with it, we need to intake enough of vitamin A, C, and D. And it's advised that natural biological active compounds found in some plants and seafood, namely resveratrol, eicosapentaenic acid, and docosahexaenic acid, capsaicin, and curcumin, among others, have been associated with anti-inflammatory effects, decrease the inflammation. But nevertheless, the administration of those components required more research, just expected and suggested. And considered that important connection between the gastrointestinal tract of microflora and immunity response of probiotics and prebiotic revealed a protective effect and promising compounds for dietary therapy in case of coronavirus infection for patients. But consider it shouldn't be used like specific treatment, but it helps our body to fight against infection, to maintain our health. And let's consider nutritional status, how it's influenced from our actual nutrition. Nutritional status is a certain state of health formed under the influence of the previous actual nutrition, considering amount of genetically determined metabolic nutrients. So, shortly speaking, nutritional status is a status of health, and it formed under the previous nutrition, considering genetics. And when considering nutritional status, we need to keep in mind 3 points: body structure, physiological function, and adaptation. There are 4 types of nutritional status. Normal, for healthy, it can be compensated and some compensated. Optimal or ideal is the best. Over nutrition, 4 degrees of overnutrition, and undernutrition, 3 stages of undernutrition. Normal nutritional status observed in majority of healthy persons with a balanced nutrition. There is no any structural, physiological, and adaptational abnormalities. What's different between compensated and some compensated? Compensated nutritional status is common for healthy person in case of no any homeostasis deviation revealed. And in case of significant deviation of adaptation, or in case of some imbalance of nutrients, It leads to changes in homeostasis and very close to physiological limits. And in case of stress, it can cause some pathology. Optimal nutritional status observed among professionals who are specially trained. And what's the difference? They have increased adaptation reserves to maintain their life and working performance in extreme situation. For example, it should be formed for limited number of persons who must work in extreme condition. They must have special physical training, special diet, medical examination, very healthy lifestyle. For example, for astronauts, athletes, special forces of military troops, because they must work in extreme condition and under a high level of physical and mental stress. Overnutrition. The main feature of overnutrition leads to overweight. And considering 4 degrees of overweight depends on the difference between ideal and actual body weight. The first of them is when overweight is up to 10 to 29%. Second degree of overweight in a range between 30 to 49% of body weight exceed. Fourth degree is in a range between 50 to 99%, and fourth degree if body weight exceed 100%. And also details third and fourth degree considered like morbid and sick with severe deviation, gastrointestinal tract and cardiorespiratory system. Undernutrition or insufficient nutritional status occurs when energy or plastic malnutrition. Now, in details it will be considered during next lecture. Just let me tell you that some short violation happens in organs and tissues, but it's reduced because of adaptation. And usually a person stay healthy. But if body weight, because of chronic undernutrition, if its deficiency exceeds 9%, it leads to disease. It leads to significant decrease in of adaptation reserve, and homeostasis parameters are affected, and they need special treatment. And insufficient morbid nutritional status occurs if lack of body weight exceeds 10%. It leads to severe clinical signs of malnutrition. It happens in case of anorexia, for example. How to investigate nutritional status? How to estimate health condition? First stage is to investigate actual food intake using the different methods, 24-hour recall interview or questionnaire to estimate food frequency intake, to identify limiting factors in nutrition. What factors are limited in the diet? Essential factor, we need to focus on limited essential factor to reveal them. And the second step is to estimate health status, to check level of physical development, functional state of cardiovascular, adaptation reserves, to check, to monitor protein, vitamin, mineral, metabolism, immune response, if necessary. And third stage, to make conclusion, give some prescription, recommendation, and monitor the changes of clinical picture in the future, and to make corrections if necessary. One of the key parameters of nutritional status, first of all, is protein intake adequacy. We need to check how much proteins we intake from the one side. How to do it? We need to use chemical composition tables to calculate how much protein we intake. And we need to estimate how much protein we intake per 1 kilogram of body weight. And define absolute number of intaken protein and how much of protein provided with animal origin proteins. The second step is to estimate protein intake adequacy to check some physiological and biochemical parameters from the another side, to check the body, to check the physical development, level of physical development, body length, body weight, because in case of lack of proteins, we can reveal growth arrest and growth retardation, especially in children and adolescents. And biochemical methods should be used. We need to check protein metabolism parameters in blood, serum, but firstly, deviation occurs in urine, and we can check content of urine nitrogen, creatinine, free amino acid, uric acid in urine, and calculate nitrogen index. For example, the most useful for protein metabolism assessment and use creatinine ratio is ratio of daily excretion of creatinine with urine to body weight. And it can be used because body muscles synthesize creatinine, and creatinine ratio is evidence about level of body muscles. And index of protein nutrition should be estimated. To calculate it, we need to know what's the urine nitrogen level in urine divided to the total nitrogen of urine. And in case of adequate protein nutrition, this parameter is above 90%. But in case of protein deficiency, urine nitrogen in urine decreased up to 80 or even below 80% in case of poor protein diet. And if necessary, we can check physiological parameters, for example, muscle strength, muscle power, to check some immunological parameters, level of immunoglobulins and immune system cells, and some vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin A, essential for immune response in the blood cells. What about supplementations and nutritional status in case of coronavirus infection? Supplementation is required and recommended for dietary intake, but it's still controversial for patients without deficiency. We can recognize effect if lack and deficiency of nutrients recognized before, but for healthy, in case of balanced nutrition, we cannot reveal significant good effect of using of supplementation. But in case of imbalanced nutrition, it should be prescribed. Chronic disease or malnutrition or coronavirus infection compromise meeting nutritional needs. For example, in case of obesity or excess adiposity, and in case of low body weight, risk factor for coronavirus infection patients. And professional should analyze cases of individually and search signs of deficiency of environmental factor that may influence the nutritional needs. What about nutritional status and therapy in case of coronavirus infection? It's given the information that coronavirus infection particularly affects the older age group who are already at risk of malnutrition. It's recommended to proceed with screening and assessment nutritional status. We use standardized tools, as mentioned above. Environmental and personal condition can be also compromised nutritional status. For example, palatability of foods, swallowing difficulties, low mobility of gastrointestinal tract, dysgeusia should be considered when organized nutrition. Internal and parenteral nutrition should be considered whenever oral feeding is not possible. In intensive care unit, for example, for non-critically ill patients, we should follow a healthy, balanced diet, as mentioned above, and sometimes supplementations of some nutrients like vitamin D, vitamin E, folates can be prescribed in case of its deficiency. Daily ration should be rich with protein and low in glucose. And for critically ill patients in intensive care units, experts recommended hypercaloric diet, but during the first week only, because long-term patients shouldn't consume hyper and hypocaloric diet, because we need to maintain balanced nutrition between energy intake and energy expenditure. And you know, in case of lockdown, a lot of persons stay at home, and usually food is available easily, and it can lead to overeating because of stress and overweight. And we need to monitor, we need to maintain energy balance. Energy expenditure should match our energy intake, or vice versa. Energy intake should match energy expenditures. Thank you for your attention, dear students. I wish you to eat healthy food. Example of healthy food is mentioned on this plate. It is example how to make your meal healthy, and when choose your diet, at source of protein, source of complex carbohydrate, and source of fruits or vegetables. Each meal you have every day. I wish you balanced nutrition and stay healthy. Thank you for your attention, my dear students.